The spear grazed my arm, not with the intention to kill, but to brand me. The resin burned cold, crawling into my skin like living ink. In that moment, I understood. I was no longer a man, no longer an outsider. I had been claimed, marked as quarry. The Shalari did not shout when they hunted. Their silence was thunder, their footsteps arranged in rhythm with the desert's heartbeat. Every strike of their spears into the ground pulsed a signal. The chase had begun. The night on Velis was alive, painted with lights from twin moons and the silent shimmer of crystal dunes. Each grain of glass sand sang when disturbed, a thin note escaping into the air. My every step betrayed me, broadcasting my path across the wasteland. I stumbled into the shadow of basalt spires, jagged towers formed from ancient lava, hoping the sharp cliffs would mask my sound. But the hunters behind me knew this ground. I was a foreigner. They were the desert's blood. Pain from the resin made my vision haze, but I forced my breath steady. They wanted the desert to finish me, to dehydrate, to freeze, to crumble. My defiance was the only weapon I had left. I snapped a power cell from my shattered survey sled and pressed it to my chest under the jacket. A spark of warmth bled through the fabric, staving off the night's suffocating cold. A beacon. Yes, but better a live beacon than a frozen corpse. Behind me, their spears chimed. Each haft carried rings of stone that clinked softly with every stride, tuned to different notes. Together, they created a living symphony in the darkness, a harmony that grew louder, closer. To the Shalari, this was not just music. It was a map of intent, a declaration that I was being woven into their ancient song of the hunt. My instincts screamed to keep running, but something in me whispered that speed alone would not save me. I had to learn their rhythm. The second night came, and with it, the storm. Winds raced across the dunes, driving shards of glass like knives. I dug into a crevice, pressing my body tight against stone while the desert screamed. When I opened my eyes again, they were there, shapes in the storm, tall and cloaked, spears anchored to the earth like lightning rods. They could have ended me then. Instead, one of them stepped forward, lifted her spear, and touched its tip to the ground in front of me. A signal, a choice. She was unlike the others, smaller, though no less fierce. The beads on her spear sang a different pattern, lower, steadier. My translator struggled, but one word slipped through her mask. Hunt. Not threat, invitation. My confusion warred with instinct. I was prey, yet here was a hand extended into the storm. Why? The desert did not forgive hesitation. I placed my palm to the ground, echoing her gesture, and the storm seemed to pause between us. We moved together when the winds eased. She led, her stride cutting efficient paths over the dunes, and I followed, limping but alive. The other hunters watched from a distance, their silence heavier than any words. She did not look back at them. Instead, she kept her eyes on the horizon, where shadows moved, larger, slower, more dangerous than her kin. It dawned on me that I had not been chosen for death but for something worse. Partnership. As we traveled, she taught me without speech. A hand signal meant silence, a tilt of... Her spear meant danger ahead. She showed me how to step lightly on the glass sand, so its song did not scream our presence to every predator in the wastes. I imitated clumsily at first, but the rhythm entered me. It became less a chase and more a dance, each step tuned to the desert's music. At night, when the cold tried to break me, she pressed heated stones into my hands. When thirst gnawed, she cracked cactus-like bulbs and shared their bitter fluid. I could not tell if I was prisoner or ally. Her people's eyes still cut me like blades, but her gaze carried something else, a question I could not yet answer. We encountered the first predator on the third night. It was no hunter of men, but of everything. An eyeless beast that burrowed. Beneath the dunes, its body ridged with glassy spines that vibrated like harp strings when it moved. I froze at the first tremor beneath my feet. She did not. She drove her spear into the sand, ringing it like a bell. The vibration sang through the desert, drawing the beast upward. Its maw erupted from the ground, all teeth and grinding plates. Should have run. Instead, I moved with her, instinct guiding me into her rhythm. She feinted left, I stumbled right, but somehow our chaos worked. My broken sled's power cell discharged in my hand as I slammed it against the beast's flank. A burst of white light seared the night, staggering the monster. She struck then, her spear plunging deep, and the beast collapsed in a chorus of shattered glass. When silence returned, her eyes met mine. No words, no translation needed. For the first time, I was no longer merely marked as quarry. I was something. Different, unwelcome, unworthy still, but no longer prey. The other hunters arrived, their faces hidden but their posture sharp with disapproval. Yet they did not strike me. Instead, they dragged the carcass back toward their camp, leaving me with her in the shadows. She knelt, pressed her palm to the sand, then to my chest. A vow or a claim, I could not tell. On the fourth night, we hunted not each other, but together. The desert was wide, endless, alive with predators, and her people had marked me quarry for reasons I could not yet understand. But I felt the change in the music of their spears. The chord no longer declared pursuit. It was a summons, an overture to a larger hunt. The Shalari believed the night belonged to the beasts. To reclaim it, they hunted beneath the moons, weaving man and prey into a song older than their oldest ruins. And now, marked though I was, I had been drawn into that song. The challenge was no longer survival, it was belonging. She handed me a spear, lighter than hers but carved from the same luminous stone. My grip felt wrong at first, but as she placed her hand over mine, adjusting the angle, I realized the truth. This was not a weapon meant to kill me. It was a tool meant to decide what I would become. When the beast's shadows stirred again beyond the dunes, we moved together. My heart no longer beat in panic, but in cadence with the chiming of spears. For the first time on Velis, the desert did not feel like a sentence. It felt like a challenge, and perhaps buried beneath fear and exhaustion, a promise. The fifth night began with silence, not the natural hush of Velis's deserts, but the kind of silence carried by intent. The Shalari gathered on a plateau of jagged stone, their cloaks whispering like broken sails. Spears tapped the ground in slow, deliberate rhythm, calling the hunt into being. I stood apart, the resin scar on my shoulder still marking me quarry. But now I carried their weapon in my hand. Some stared at me as if I were a blasphemy allowed too near. Others watched with curiosity, as though waiting to see if the desert would correct its mistake. The one who had spared me, the huntress with steady eyes, stood at my side. Her presence was not protective, but neither was it dismissive. She acknowledged me, and that was more than any of the others had offered. The spears chimed again, faster, sharper, until the rhythm set my pulse running wild. The desert seemed to answer, its dunes humming under the weight of something vast moving beneath the sand. When the beast came, it did not come alone. A pack of glass-scaled predators slithered out from the storm-scarred ridges, their bodies like liquid knives under the moons. Their song was a shriek of grinding crystal, a dissonant answer to the Shalari's careful harmony. The hunters did not scatter. They sang louder, their spears pounding the ground in unison, creating a wall of sound that pushed the predators back step by step. I mirrored them awkwardly, striking my spear down, feeling the vibration crack through bone. The pack hesitated, confused by my discordant rhythm, and for one brief moment I feared I had undone the hunt. But she caught my wrist, stilled me, and guided my hand until my strikes matched her own. The noise reshaped into balance, and the predators lunged forward in fury. The clash was unlike any battle I had known, sound as much a weapon as steel. The Shalari spears did not merely stab, they sang, vibrating into the beast's crystalline hides until they shattered like glass. I followed her lead, my arm shaking, my strikes clumsy but effective. When the last predator fell, its shards scattered across the dunes like stars. For the first time, voices broke the silence. Harsh, guttural syllables hissed around me, words not carried by my translator. Some pointed, accusing, their gestures sharp with discontent. Others remained still, unreadable. My huntress raised her spear, driving its butt into the stone. The cord silenced. All eyes fell on her. She spoke one word, her voice carrying like the strike of iron on an anvil. Together. The hunters' reactions split, some scoffing, others nodding. I did not know what she had gambled with that word, but I felt its weight. The sixth night carried us into the wasteland proper, where dunes gave way to glass plains. Jagged sheets reflected the twin moons, creating illusions of phantom landscapes stretching into forever. Walking across them was perilous. Each step threatened to split the glass and send shards lancing upward. Yet the Shalari moved with unerring grace, never faltering. I trailed behind, mimicking their balance. My boots cracked the surface too often, earning glares. Still, my huntress slowed her pace to keep near me, as though tethering me to survival. When we paused at the glass cliffs, she pressed a shard into my palm. It was carved with patterns, rings within rings, a token, a lesson I did not understand. But when I held it up, the moonlight refracted into a pattern of symbols that even my translator struggled to render. Paths, hunts, victories. Their history was not written in ink, but in light. Perhaps she meant to show me that I could be written into it, or perhaps to remind me that I had no place in it at all. That night, we hunted something far greater than beasts. A rival clan had crossed into their territory, and their spears marked not quarry, but war. The Shalari moved silently, their music dampened to whispers. I crouched low, unsure whether my presence was tolerated or bait. The rival hunters appeared, cloaked figures with spears crowned in black stones. Their rhythm was harsh, broken, more like a threat than a song. The air between the clans hummed with violence. When the clash erupted, I saw the true depth of their art. Spears clashed, not to kill, but to unmake. Vibrations collided, dissonance tearing through the air until it felt like the world itself might split. My huntress fought fiercely, her spear weaving patterns of harmony that cut through chaos. I fought beside her, though each strike felt like an echo of hers, imperfect but driven by necessity. Together we pressed against the rival hunters until they fell back, snarling curses in a tongue even the desert refused to echo. Afterward, when silence reclaimed the night, she looked at me and spoke again. Not prey, not yet. My chest tightened at the phrasing. I was no longer quarry, but neither was I kin. I was suspended in a fragile space between rejection and acceptance, a position that could collapse with one misstep. By the seventh night, exhaustion dragged at me. My wounds ached, my muscles screamed, and still the Shalari pressed forward. The desert offered no mercy, only harder trials. We descended into a canyon of fractured stone, the air thick with the scent of minerals and something more. Rot. Bones littered the ground, massive and twisted, relics of creatures that had died long before my arrival. The Shalari whispered among themselves, their voices carrying a reverence I could not decipher. My huntress said nothing, but her grip on her spear tightened. The danger came swiftly. From the canyon's shadows, a beast emerged, towering, plated with obsidian armor, its jaws a lattice of stone teeth grinding sparks. It roared, and the sound shattered rocks into dust. The Shalari spread, spears raised, their song swelling into a battle hymn. My legs wanted to flee, but something bound me in place, perhaps pride, perhaps the memory of her word, together. The fight was chaos. Spears struck the beast's armor, shattering stone with every vibrating impact, yet it refused to fall, its hide too thick, its hunger too vast. I moved instinctively, scrambling onto its flank, jamming my stolen spear into the gaps of its plates. The vibration rattled my bones, nearly shattering me along with it. But it staggered, and in that heartbeat, my huntress struck true, driving her weapon through its eye, ending the beast with a thunderous crack that echoed through the canyon. When silence fell, all eyes turned to me, some with anger, others with reluctant acknowledgement. I had interfered in their sacred hunt, broken their rhythm, yet in doing so had helped save them. My chest heaved, blood dripping from my arms, but I stood tall. Not as prey, not as quarry. Something else. Something undefined. On the 8th night, the Shalari made camp. Fires burned low, their smoke curling like black ribbons into the star-salted sky. For the first time, I was not forced to the edges. My huntress sat beside me, her cloak brushing. Mine, her eyes reflecting firelight. She spoke sparingly, but the translator offered enough. Desert chooses, always, quarry or kin. I looked at her then, truly looked, and saw not just a hunter, but a question embodied in flesh and steel. My place here was fragile, suspended between roles I did not yet understand. But as the fire burned and the hunters sang low songs that vibrated through the stone beneath us, I felt something shift inside me. I was no longer running from the desert. I was beginning to run with it, and with her. The 9th night fell with no song, no ritual, no harmony of spears. The Shalari were quiet, their silence heavier than battle. We had crossed into the valley of black glass, a place where even the wind refused to speak. My huntress walked ahead, her cloak trailing sparks where it brushed the jagged shards. I felt the weight of their stares at my back, the unspoken judgment pressing harder with every step. Something lingered here, something older than prey and predator. At the heart of the valley stood the obsidian pillar, a jagged spire that seemed to drink starlight. Around its base, marks had been carved deep into the stone, rings within rings, some broken, some whole. The Shalari gathered in a circle, striking their spears once against the earth. The sound carried, not outward, but inward, echoing through bone. The translator whispered a fractured phrase. Final hunt. When the ground trembled, I understood. The beast that rose from beneath the pillar was no mere predator. It was a relic, an ancient nightmare clad in glass and fire. Its scales shimmered with living flame. Its roar cracked the sky itself. The Shalari formed their song, spears chiming into a desperate symphony, but the beast's voice overwhelmed them. Their harmony shattered. The hunters faltered. 4. The first time I saw fear in their eyes. Instinct screamed at me to run. But my huntress turned, her gaze fierce, unyielding, and in that look was everything. Challenge, demand, faith. My body moved before thought could stop it. I struck my spear into the ground, ringing it loud and raw, an untrained sound, but one that cut through the beast's roar for a heartbeat. The hunters staggered, confused, then recalibrated around me. Their spears adjusted, their music shifted. My broken rhythm became the missing note they had never known they needed. We fought together, weaving chaos into order. The beast lunged, crushing stone beneath its weight. I climbed its flank, the resin scar on my shoulder burning bright as if it recognized the moment. My spear struck deep into a seam between plates, the vibration rattling my teeth. The beast screamed, its voice faltering. My huntress struck next, her spear glowing with resonance, driving into its heart. The obsidian pillar shattered with the force of its fall, and silence returned to the valley. The 10th night did not bring celebration. The Shalari gathered around the beast's corpse, their voices low and sharp. Some gestured at me, their words like knives. Outsider, intrusion, blasphemy. My chest burned with the weight of their hatred, but my huntress stood before me, her spear planted in the sand like a wall. Her voice rose above theirs, carrying the word she had given me once before. Together. It was not enough. An elder stepped forward, cloak heavy with age, his spear crowned in obsidian rings. His voice was the crack of stone, untranslatable, but clear. He pointed at me, then at the beast's corpse, a challenge, a demand. One more hunt, alone. If I failed, I would be prey again. If I succeeded, the desert itself would decide. That night they left me at the edge of the wastes, the elder's spear thrust into my hands. My huntress did not meet my eyes. Perhaps she could not. Perhaps she dared not. The desert stretched before me, black glass shimmering under twin moons. Somewhere out there another beast waited. My final hunt. The 11th night broke me down to raw will. The desert gave no water, no warmth, no guidance, only the endless sound of my own breathing and the memory of their song. When the predator came, it was smaller than the beast beneath the pillar, but no less deadly. A shard lion, its mane glittering with blades, its roar like a storm of breaking glass. Alone, my spear felt heavy, unwieldy. But I remembered her hands guiding mine, correcting my angle, teaching me rhythm. The fight was brutal. Each strike cut me, each roar drove me to the brink of collapse. I bled into the sand, my vision blurred. Yet I refused to fall. Every step echoed the rhythm of the Shalari, every strike a desperate imitation of their harmony. The shard lion lunged for my throat, and with the last of my strength, I drove the spear through its chest. The vibration tore through flesh and crystal alike, until the beast collapsed in a shower of sparks. I stood over it, gasping, my body broken but alive. The desert was silent. Then, faintly, I heard it. The song of spears, distant but approaching. The Shalari had followed, not to intervene, but to witness. My huntress was among them, her eyes burning with something I had never seen before. Not pity, not defiance. Recognition. The 12th night was the last. We returned to the plateau where it had begun. The hunters circled, spears striking, the ground in unison. Their chord was different now, deeper, fuller, carrying a note that had not been there before. My resin scar burned hot, then cooled, fading until it was nothing more than skin. The mark of quarry was gone. The elder approached, his eyes like carved obsidian. He studied me for a long moment, then raised his spear. The rings sang, and the sound carried through the circle. My translator whispered only one word, soft and uncertain, but enough. Kin. The hunters struck their spears together, the desert vibrating with their acceptance. My huntress stepped forward, placing her palm against my chest where once she had pressed her vow. This time there was no hesitation, no question. Her voice was steady, the word clear even without translation. Together. The desert no longer felt like exile. It felt like belonging. The Shalari had marked me quarry. Now I was one of their hunters. And beside her, beneath the twin moons of Veles, I had finally found what I had been chasing all along. Not survival, not redemption, but a place to stand, unbroken, unalone.